little fox.
Smallpox and the development of vaccination. Nobody wants to get sick. Diseases can be scary, and some have no cure. Today we can prevent many diseases, but in earlier times, people were not so lucky. Smallpox, for example, plagued people for thousands of years. Learning how to prevent this disease led to the development of vaccination, which now prevents many more diseases. Smallpox was a highly contagious illness. It usually started with fever and vomiting, and soon a rash would appear. The rash eventually formed scabs that left horrible scars when they fell off. Smallpox also blinded people and killed 30% of its victims. Smallpox was just one of many illnesses caused by viruses. Viruses are extremely tiny organisms that take over living cells. To reproduce, they force those cells to make more of the virus. Ancient people didn't know about viruses. But they did notice that people who survived smallpox usually didn't get it again. They were immune to smallpox, even if they were re-exposed to it. By the end of the first millennium, the Chinese had developed a way to prevent people from getting smallpox. They crushed smallpox scabs into a powder and inhaled it through the nose. This deliberate exposure to smallpox was less dangerous than catching the disease and offered protection from it. Similar techniques of exposure were also used in India and Turkey. Inhaling smallpox scabs wasn't a perfect method of preventing the disease. Some people became sick from it. Over the years, the practice evolved. Rather than snorting the smallpox virus, people began placing it in an open cut. They also figured out that scabs from people with mild smallpox were the safest to use. This method wasn't practiced in Europe until the 18th century. Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, the wife of England's ambassador to Turkey, became a leading advocate of the practice. She had learned of it while living in Turkey and had her own child receive the procedure. After that, the practice became more common, although some people remained reluctant to try it. Exposure to the live smallpox virus was still risky. In 1796, an English physician and scientist named Edward Jenner developed a safer way to prevent smallpox. He had noticed that local milkmaids often got cowpox, a similar but much milder illness. After they got cowpox, they were protected from smallpox too. Jenner experimented, wondering if he could come up with a safer way to prevent smallpox. Eventually, this led him to the idea of vaccination. Vaccination uses a dead or weakened version of a virus, which is less dangerous than the live virus used in earlier procedures. After exposure to a virus, the immune system creates antibodies, substances that fight infection and prevent illness. Later, if the body sees that virus again, it will recognize it and know how to make more antibodies. This is how the body develops immunity to fight diseases naturally. The weaker viruses used in vaccines get the body to make antibodies, but don't make a person ill. Jenner's smallpox vaccinations proved safe and effective. Governments quickly worked to vaccinate entire populations against smallpox. Soon, the number of smallpox cases and deaths fell significantly in some parts of the world. The knowledge gained from Jenner's method wasn't limited to smallpox. In the late 1800s, French scientist Louis Pasteur's studies of germs and disease helped him develop a vaccine for rabies. Over the century, scientists developed vaccines for other diseases as well, but progress was slow. By the 1920s, scientists achieved more breakthroughs and more diseases could be prevented by vaccination, including diphtheria. In the 1950s, researchers developed a vaccine for polio, a disease that had left thousands of children and adults paralyzed. Smallpox still remained a threat despite the development of the vaccine. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, many nations had wiped out smallpox entirely. But outbreaks still occurred in developing nations. In 1966, the World Health Organization began a project of mass vaccination to eliminate smallpox in the places where it still existed. By 1980, the illness had been completely eradicated. Today, children can receive vaccinations to protect them from different illnesses. But children aren't the only ones who have to get vaccinated. Many childhood vaccinations require more shots later in life. These shots are like a recharge for the original vaccine. Each year, people of all ages get flu shots for protection against the influenza virus. The flu virus changes quickly, so scientists must create a new vaccine each year. The flu vaccine prevents over 1 million cases of flu each year. Smallpox is no longer a threat to humans thanks to vaccines. However, new diseases have emerged with no treatments, cures, or vaccines available. Perhaps the lessons learned from smallpox will prevent future illnesses. While vaccines have saved millions of lives, there are still more lives to be saved.